As we look at Jesus' encouragements for the last days, we see, number one, he encourages us to part with your hope in this world. Not to part with your hope, but to part for your hope in this world. If you want to be prepared to endure and to suffer and not to lose your mind when the last days come upon you, you have to have already in the past, parted with your hope in this world. Verse 1 shows us that Jesus and the 12, they're inside the temple. They're coming out when the story begins. An unnamed disciple remarks at the beauty, at the grandeur of this temple complex. Now, for someone in small town Galilee, it probably wasn't every day that you got to go see the big temple. It's like if you live in upstate New York, you know about the New York City. You've been there a few times, but every time you go there, it's still pretty massive, and you're kind of taken aback by it and amazed at the size of it. It's a lot like that. They're amazed at what they're looking at. Jewish historian Josephus wrote that the largest stones in this complex, since we're talking about the stones, were 37 by 12 by 18 feet. That's a large single stone. 37 by 12 by 18. That's a stone bigger than this table up front. That's a big single stone. It makes sense that they would look at these things and be amazed. It was a great source of pride for them because architecture can symbolize the greatness of God, and it did. And then Jesus says, let me tell you something about these stones. It's all going down. Not one of these is going to be left on top of another. This place is going to get destroyed. And in the heart and mind of a Jewish person, it was their nightmare to hear that. They read about this, and it was like the thing that they feared most ever happening again. This statement would be like if you combined something of national significance, religious significance, and personal significance, wrapped it up, and watched it all burn before your very eyes. There would be a sense of something deep being ripped away from you. And that's what Jesus was purposefully doing. He prophesied of a true event that would come. Now, I will tell you, we don't have time to get in all the details, but I know some of you like to research after the fact. You can look up the Jewish-Roman wars and the assault on the temple in 70 AD. And you can find when Rome came and Emperor Titus destroyed this temple, just like how Jesus said it would. It's one of the greatest prophecies in the Bible because it happened truly right after Jesus said it. Rome came, and you remember all through the gospel of Jesus, there's this fear that Pilate is going through in his mind, right? We don't want to cause a riot. We don't want to cause an uproar. And as you're reading it, you're kind of like, come on, nothing ever happens. Because it doesn't happen in the Bible. But the riot did come, and the great fear did come in 70 AD. It just didn't come in Pilate's day, but the big one came in 70 AD. Rome displayed their full strength. They unleashed their full might on Jerusalem and utterly destroyed the temple in a culmination of the Jewish-Roman wars. And as we think about Jesus' disciples, they certainly had it tough during that first era of the early church. They would experience great persecution. And Jesus wanted them to prepare for this. How? By stripping away their greatest sense, their single greatest sense of worldly hope. Jesus was transferring and shifting their hope from the temple and their Jewish identity to the gathering of spirit-filled believers and their Christian identity. When their eyes would one day see the temple being desecrated and burned, it would not be the end of their faith, because that's not where their faith was to begin with. We need that very message today. Christian, the most important things in our lives will one day be gone. And the only thing that will last eternally is your relationship with Jesus Christ. You might say, as a child, my parents and grandparents and siblings will always be around. Those of you that are older know they won't. This church will always exist. You know, not one church that Paul planted is still around, and he's a really good church planter. The median age of a church in America is 73 years. That means half are older, half are younger. Churches don't last forever. The SBC will always be faithful and never go liberal. I hope. Maybe not. Public schools will always be safe and trustworthy for my children. America will always be the world's superpower and a beacon of freedom. I hope. My 401k and retirement will be there when I need it, and my Social Security will never go bankrupt. At least I always have my health. At least I know my job is secure. We say these things, but we know what happens when we place all of our hope in worldly institutions. Ecclesiastes 3 says that for everything there is a season. For every time and every matter under heaven, there's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. And Jesus is telling us today, if you want to survive what is coming in the last days, do not place your hope in the temporal things of this world. We can enjoy things, we should. We can build things and invest now and today, and we should. However, we cannot get to the point that if our version of the temple is destroyed before our very eyes, we despair and crumble because all of our hope is lost. That cannot be.